The void of space shimmered as the Achernar vessel emerged from its hyperdrive jump. Saturnine rings loomed large in the view screen, a celestial masterpiece that momentarily captivated the alien crew. Captain Volunder, his iridescent scales reflecting the dim light of the bridge, leaned forward in anticipation. This system, unremarkable on their star charts, held the key to their species' survival, or so they hoped. "Scanners detecting no advanced civilizations," reported Navigator Thalasi, her tentacles dancing across the holographic interface. "Primitive radio waves only." As expected, Volunder nodded, a flicker of disappointment crossing his features. "Proceed to the third planet. Perhaps we'll find—" A blinding flash erupted from the darkness, bathing the bridge in harsh light. Alarms blared as the ship rocked violently. "Impossible!" Thalasi's voice cracked with panic. "Energy signature unlike anything in our database." Volunder's inner eyelids blinked rapidly, trying to process the situation. How could a supposedly primitive world possess such firepower? His racing thoughts were interrupted by a crackling transmission, the universal translator struggling to keep up. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down immediately and prepare to be boarded." The voice was cold, authoritative. Volunder exchanged glances with his science officer, Neris. Her bioluminescent patches pulsed with anxiety. "They shouldn't have this capability," Neris whispered. "Our stealth systems are clearly ineffective," Volunder finished, his tone grim. "Open a channel." As Volunder attempted to explain their peaceful intentions, a squadron of sleek vessels materialized around them. Their design was perplexing, a blend of angular, almost primitive lines, yet shimmering with an energy field that defied explanation. Admiral Erin Murphy stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, her weathered face illuminated by holographic displays. Years of defending Earth's borders against less-than-friendly alien visitors had honed her instincts to a razor's edge. "Status report," she barked, eyes fixed on the alien vessel. Lieutenant Commander Mika Lane, hunched over his console, rattled off a stream of data. "Sir, their technology is inconsistent. Hyperdrive capabilities, but minimal shielding. Advanced sensors, yet they didn't detect our defense grid." Murphy's brow furrowed. "A trap?" "Unlikely," chimed in Dr. Kim Fan, the ship's xenobiologist. Her fingers flew across a tablet, analyzing real-time data. "Biosigns indicate extreme stress responses. They're genuinely surprised." Murphy nodded, her mind racing through potential scenarios. "Maintain lockdown protocols. Prepare for possible boarding action, but let's not be hasty." These humans, as they called themselves, moved with practiced efficiency. Volunder watched, a mix of awe and trepidation coursing through him, as armored figures materialized directly onto their bridge. The technology required for such precise teleportation was thought to be centuries beyond their own capabilities. One figure stepped forward, helmet retracting to reveal a stern-faced human male. "I am Major Quentin Faulkner. You will comply with all instructions. Any hostile action will be met with immediate force." Volunder raised his upper appendages slowly, a universal gesture of surrender. "We mean no harm. We come seeking aid for our people." Faulkner's eyes narrowed, but a flicker of curiosity passed across his face. He tapped a device on his wrist, and a shimmering field enveloped the Achernar crew. "A containment field," Neris murmured, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. "But the energy signature, it's unlike anything in our databases." As they were escorted off their ship, Volunder's gaze was drawn to a massive structure looming in the distance. A space station, but on a scale that defied belief. Its design was a hodgepodge of styles, sections that looked cobbled together from primitive materials alongside gleaming, hyper-advanced modules. Dr. Elias Mbeke, Earth's foremost xenolinguist, paced nervously in the station's secure conference room. The opportunity to study a new alien language had him practically vibrating with excitement. "Doctor," Admiral Murphy's voice cut through his reverie. Remember, this is a first contact situation. We need information, but tread carefully. Hey there, hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel to grow and reach more people. Now let's find out what comes next. Mbeke nodded, composing himself. As the door slid open, revealing the alien delegation, he couldn't help but gasp. Their bioluminescent patches pulsed in complex patterns, a form of non-verbal communication he'd only theorized about. Fascinating, he breathed, earning a sharp look from Murphy. The lead alien, Captain Volander, they'd learned, spoke first. Your technology, it surpasses our understanding. Yet our scans showed only primitive radio waves. How is this possible? Murphy and Mbeke exchanged glances. The Admiral chose her words carefully. Earth's history is complicated. We've learned to be cautious. As the conversation unfolded, it became clear that the Achanar's visit was born of desperation. A mysterious affliction was ravaging their species, and they believed Earth held the key to a cure. Volander's head spun as he tried to reconcile the contradictions before him. The conference room itself was a microcosm of human duality, cutting-edge holographic displays alongside what appeared to be simple wooden furniture. Your species intrigues us, Neris ventured, her scientific curiosity getting the better of her. Your technological development seems non-linear. The human called Mbeke smiled, a gesture Volander was beginning to recognize as friendly. We've had our setbacks, and our leaps forward. As the discussions continued, a commotion outside the room caught everyone's attention. The door burst open, revealing a disheveled human male in civilian attire. "Admiral Murphy!" he panted, waving a datapad frantically. "Long-range sensors have detected. You need to see this!" The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Murphy's posture stiffened, and Volander felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever this new development was, it clearly spelled trouble. Jake Foster, a low-level sensor technician, had never imagined he'd be briefing top brass and alien visitors. Yet here he was, hands shaking as he pulled up the sensor data. It's a fleet, sir," he stammered. "Massive, like nothing we've ever encountered." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a swarm of angular, almost crystalline ships approaching the solar system. Dr. Fan's face paled. "Those energy signatures, they match the descriptions in the Achernar database." "It's the Zin." Murphy's eyes narrowed. "The same Zin you mentioned were expanding aggressively in your sector of the galaxy." Volander nodded gravely. "They must have followed us. Admiral, you must understand, the Zin are relentless. They'll stop at nothing to..." A piercing alarm cut through the air, red emergency lights bathing the room in an ominous glow. "Multiple hyperdrive signatures detected," Foster's voice cracked. They're here." As chaos erupted around them, Volander locked eyes with Admiral Murphy. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Whatever their differences, whatever mysteries still lay between their species, they now faced a common threat. The real test of humanity's capabilities and the true nature of their relationship with the Achernar was about to begin. The klaxons blared through the station, their urgent wail a stark contrast to the tense silence that had fallen over the conference room. Admiral Murphy's face hardened into a mask of determination as she barked orders into her comm device. The Achernar delegation watched in stunned silence, their bioluminescent patches flickering with a mixture of fear and fascination. Volander's inner monologue raced. How could these humans, who moments ago seemed cautious and guarded, suddenly transform into a model of military efficiency? It was as if they had been preparing for this moment for eons. "You," Murphy pointed at Volander, her eyes blazing with intensity. "We need everything you know about the Zin. Now." As Volander began to explain, the room around them burst into action. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing real-time data of the approaching Zin fleet. Humans in various uniforms rushed in and out, their movements precise and purposeful. Dr. Fan, the xenobiologist, approached the Achernar with a handheld device. "With your permission, I need to scan you. We might find a weakness in the Xin we can exploit." Neris, the Achernar science officer, tilted her head in curiosity. "Your technology, it's unlike anything we've encountered. How did you advance so quickly?" Fan's eyes twinkled with a hint of mystery. "Who says it was quick?" Before Neris could probe further, Fan's device emitted a series of beeps. The human's eyes widened as she studied the readout. "This is impossible. Your cellular structure, it's... Admiral, you need to see this." Murphy strode over, her brow furrowing as she examined the data. She exchanged a loaded glance with Fan before turning back to the Achernar. "It seems we have much to discuss. But first, we have a more pressing matter to attend to." Major Quentin Faulkner stood at attention in the station's command center, surrounded by a dizzying array of holographic displays and bustling personnel. He watched as Admiral Murphy entered, followed closely by the alien delegation. "Status report," Murphy demanded. A young lieutenant, her fingers dancing across a translucent keyboard, responded without looking up. "Xin fleet approaching at sublight speeds. Estimated time to Jupiter's orbit, 47 minutes. Murphy nodded, her mind already formulating strategies. "Activate the Helios protocol and get me a direct line to Luna base." Faulkner couldn't help but notice the confusion on the Achernar faces. He leaned in, speaking in a low voice. "You're about to see why it's unwise to underestimate humanity." As if on cue, the main view screen flickered to life, revealing a grizzled face that Faulkner recognized as General Lindholm of the Lunar Defense Force. "Aaron," Lindholm greeted, his tone grave. "I assume this isn't a social call." Murphy quickly briefed the general on the situation. Lindholm's expression remained impassive, but Faulkner noticed a glint in the old soldier's eye. It was the look of a man who had been waiting for this moment. "Understood," Lindholm nodded. "Our Quillian batteries are charged and ready. Just give the word." The Achernar exchanged puzzled glances. Volunder, unable to contain his curiosity, spoke up. "Our Quillian batteries. We detected no such weapons in your system." A small smile played at the corners of Murphy's mouth. "That's rather the point, Captain." Volunder felt as if he were drowning in a sea of contradictions. Every moment spent among these humans revealed new depths to their capabilities, hinting at a history far more complex than their initial scans had suggested. His gaze was drawn to a nearby display, showing a cross-section of what appeared to be the moon. But instead of a solid celestial body, the image revealed a honeycomb of chambers and tunnels, bristling with technology that defied explanation. "Impossible," Neris breathed, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "The energy readings alone would require. But how did you hide this from our scans?" Dr. Mbeke, the xenolinguist, approached with a kind smile. "As the old Earth saying goes, we have a few tricks up our sleeves." The casual way he delivered the phrase sent a shiver down Volunder's spine. What other secrets were these humans hiding? And more importantly, why? Before he could ponder further, a sharp pain lanced through his abdomen. Volunder doubled over, his bioluminescent patches flaring with distress. The affliction that had driven them to seek help from Earth was asserting itself at the worst possible moment. Dr. Fan was at his side in an instant, her earlier scans forgotten in the face of a medical emergency. "What's happening? Is this the condition you mentioned earlier?" Volunder nodded weakly, struggling to form words. "Our people. Dying. Need..." Suddenly, the pain subsided as quickly as it had come. Volunder straightened, embarrassed by his moment of weakness. But the concern on the humans' faces was genuine, and for a moment, he felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps these enigmatic beings truly could help his people. Admiral Murphy watched the alien captain with a mixture of concern and calculation. The sudden onset and equally sudden cessation of symptoms was troubling. She made a mental note to have Dr. Fan prioritize research into the Akernar's condition once the immediate threat was dealt with. "Admiral," a voice cut through her thoughts. It was Commander Aisha Karim, the station's head of cybersecurity. "We're detecting unusual data patterns in the approaching Zin fleet. It's like nothing we've seen before." Murphy frowned. "Elaborate." Karim's fingers flew across her console, bringing up a series of complex diagrams. Their ship seemed to be operating as a single networked entity, highly efficient, but potentially vulnerable to the right kind of cyber attack. A spark of inspiration flashed in Murphy's eyes. She turned to the Akernar delegation. "Your earlier scans of the Zin, did you gather any data on their communication protocols?" Neris nodded eagerly, producing a small device from a pouch on her suit. "We have extensive records, though we were never able to fully decrypt their transmissions." Murphy's smile was predatory. "Commander Karim, work with our guests. See if you can find a way to exploit this network. Dr. Mbeke, assist with any translation issues." As the impromptu team huddled around Karim's station, Murphy turned her attention back to the main display. The Zin fleet was now visible, a swarm of crystalline shapes that seemed to absorb the very light around them. "General Lindholm," she addressed the lunar commander, "prepare to execute Operation Sunburst on my mark, but hold fire until I give the word." Lindholm nodded, his image flickering slightly as he turned to relay orders to his crew. Nyarys found herself swept up in a whirlwind of activity, her earlier trepidation replaced by a growing sense of awe. The speed at which these humans adapted to new information was staggering. She watched as Commander Karim's fingers danced across interfaces that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. "Your technology," Nyarys ventured, unable to contain her curiosity. "It's unlike anything in our records. Even species we considered ancient legends didn't possess such integration." Karim smiled, her eyes never leaving her work. "Sometimes the oldest tricks are the best ones. We just refine them over time." There it was again, that hint of something greater, older. Nyarys felt a theory forming in the back of her mind, but it was too outlandish to consider. Surely these humans couldn't be. Her thoughts were interrupted by a triumphant exclamation from Dr. Mbeke. "I've got it. The Zine language. It's based on a mathematical progression. Complex, but not unbreakable." Karim's eyes lit up. "That's the key. If we can introduce a cascading error into their network." As the humans rapidly developed a plan that seemed equal parts brilliant and insane, Nyarys couldn't help but feel a mix of hope and unease. These beings, who hours ago they had dismissed as primitive, were now their best hope against the Zin threat. But at what cost? And what other surprises did they have in store? In the depths of Luna Base, General Lindholm stood before a massive control panel, his weathered hands hovering over a series of ominously marked switches. Decades of preparation had led to this moment, yet he felt a twinge of regret that it had come to this. A junior officer approached, saluting crisply. "Sir, our Quillian batteries are at full charge. Targeting solutions locked." Lindholm nodded, his expression grim. "Prepare to fire on my command, and may whatever gods are out there have mercy on us all." Back on the station, Admiral Murphy watched as the final pieces of their hastily assembled plan fell into place. Commander Karim and the Achernar scientists had worked miracles, developing a cyber weapon that, in theory, could disrupt the entire Zin fleet. "It's ready, Admiral," Karim reported, her voice tight with tension. "But we'll only get one shot at this. If it fails..." Murphy's eyes hardened. "Then we do this the old-fashioned way." She tapped her comm device. "All hands, prepare for possible combat. This is not a drill." Throughout the station and on ships throughout the solar system, humans rushed to battle stations. Weapons that had lain dormant for centuries hummed to life, their power sending ripples through the very fabric of space-time. Volunder watched in awe as the humans transformed before his eyes. Gone was any pretense of primitiveness. In its place stood a race of warriors, their movements synchronized with an efficiency that spoke of countless battles fought and won. A stray thought nagged at him. "Admiral," he ventured, "your people seem prepared for this, as if you've been expecting something like this for a long time." Murphy's smile was tight, her eyes never leaving the tactical displays. "Let's just say we've learned to hope for the best and prepare for the worst." Before Volander could probe further, alarms blared throughout the station. The Zin fleet had entered the outer solar system, their ships moving with an unnatural precision that sent chills down his spine. "This is it," Murphy's voice cut through the tension. "Karim, execute cyber attack. General Lindholm, stand by to fire on my command." As Commander Karim's fingers flew across her console, initiating the cyber weapon, Volander felt a surge of hope. Perhaps these remarkable humans truly could turn the tide against the Zin threat. But even as the thought formed, a new alarm sounded. Karim's face paled as she read the incoming data. "Admiral, the Zin, they're adapting. The cyber attack, they're using it against us." In that moment, as chaos erupted around them, Volander realized that the true test of humanity's capabilities and the fate of both their species was only just beginning. As the Zin fleet surged through the solar system, their crystalline ships absorbing and distorting light in ways that defied conventional physics, a tense silence fell over the command center. Admiral Murphy's eyes narrowed, her mind racing through contingencies faster than any AI. "They've adapted to our cyber attack," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Then, louder, "Commander Karim, isolate our systems. General Lindholm, prepare to execute Operation Sunburst on my mark." Volander watched in fascination as the humans' initial shock gave way to a cold, calculated efficiency. It was as if they had trained for this very moment for centuries. Suddenly, the main view screen erupted with activity. The Zin fleet, previously moving as one cohesive unit, split into two distinct groups. The larger contingent continued its relentless push towards Earth, while a smaller but still formidable force peeled away, heading for the red planet. "Mars," Neris breathed, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with concern. "But why? There's nothing there but dust and old human rovers, isn't there?" Dr. Fahn's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Oh, there's quite a bit more than that, I assure you." Before Neris could probe further, Admiral Murphy's voice cut through the tension. "Colonel Evers, you're up. Show these crystalline bastards why it's a bad idea to set foot on our soil." The view screen shifted, revealing a rugged-looking man in a dust-covered exosuit. Behind him, a vast underground cavern stretched into the distance, filled with rows upon rows of sleek, menacing vehicles that looked nothing like the primitive Mars rovers the Achernar had expected. "Roger that, Admiral," Evers grinned, his weathered face a mask of determination. "The Ares Brigade has been waiting for this day. We won't let you down." As the transmission cut off, Volander turned to Admiral Murphy, his mind reeling. You've had a military presence on Mars all this time? But our scans..." Murphy's smile was enigmatic. "Captain, you're about to learn why humanity has survived for as long as it has. We're very good at hiding in plain sight." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The Achernar delegation watched in awe as the humans coordinated a defense that spanned 2 planets and the space between them. From their vantage point in the orbital station, they had a front-row seat to a display of military prowess that defied their understanding of human capabilities. On Mars, the Zin landing force was met with immediate and overwhelming resistance. The Ares Brigade erupted from hidden bunkers across the planet's surface, their vehicles and weapon systems perfectly adapted to the harsh Martian environment. "Look there," Neris pointed, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. On the main view screen, human soldiers in exosuits were using the low Martian gravity to perform impossible feats of agility, leaping vast distances to outmaneuver the Zin ground forces. But it wasn't just raw firepower that impressed the Achernar. The humans displayed a level of tactical creativity that bordered on the artistic. They used the planet's dust storms to mask their movements, lured Zin forces into ambushes in ancient impact craters, and even weaponized the very regolith beneath their feet. Incredible, Volunder murmured, watching as a squad of human soldiers used some kind of sonic device to trigger a localized dust storm, blinding and disorienting a group of Zin attackers. Their adaptability, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. Dr. Mbeke, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. You know, there's an old Earth saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Our history, well, let's just say we've had a lot of necessity. As the battle raged on, the Achernar couldn't help but notice the subtle hints about humanity's past. References to ancient conflicts, tactics that seemed honed by countless wars, and technology that spoke of a civilization far older than its apparent age. On the Martian surface, Colonel Evers led a daring assault on the main Zin landing site. His voice crackled over the comms, steady despite the chaos around him. Just like Olympus Mons, eh, Bellamy? Except this time the bugs are a lot bigger. The casual reference to what must have been a previous conflict on Mars sent Volunder's mind spinning. Just how long had humans been fighting? And against what? But there was no time to dwell on these questions. The tide of battle was turning. The Zin, for all their technological might, seemed unable to adapt to the constantly shifting tactics of the human defenders. Their rigid, hive-mind approach that had served them so well in space was proving a liability on the unpredictable Martian terrain. Admiral Murphy watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and grim determination. General Lindholm, she commanded, the Zin fleet is splitting its attention. Now's our chance. Execute Operation Sunburst. On the lunar surface, hidden weapon systems that had lain dormant for centuries hummed to life. The very regolith of the moon seemed to shift and change, revealing massive energy projectors aimed at the heart of the Zin fleet. Our Quillian batteries at full charge, Lindholm reported, his voice tight with anticipation. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The space between the moon and the Zin fleet erupted in a dazzling display of light and energy. Beams of coherent energy, more powerful than anything the Achernar had ever witnessed, lanced out from the lunar surface. Where they struck, Zin ships simply ceased to exist, their matter converted to energy in a fraction of a second. By the cosmic void, Neris gasped, her scientific mind struggling to comprehend the energies involved. That kind of weaponry, it shouldn't be possible without tearing apart the fabric of space-time itself. Murphy's smile was grim. Who says it doesn't? We just learned how to stitch it back together. The combined assault from Mars and the moon threw the Zin into disarray. Their once coordinated fleet broke apart, individual ships trying to escape the onslaught. On Mars, the ground battle turned into a rout as the Zin forces, cut off from their main fleet, found themselves outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by the Ares brigade. As the last of the Zin ships fled the solar system, a cheer went up throughout the station. Humans embraced each other, their earlier professional detachment giving way to raw emotion. But among the celebration, Volander noticed Admiral Murphy standing apart, her expression thoughtful. Admiral, he approached cautiously. That was beyond anything we could have imagined. You've saved not just your world, but ours as well. How can we ever repay you? Murphy turned to him, her eyes holding a weight of years far beyond her apparent age. By helping us prepare for what comes next, Captain. The Zin will be back, and they won't be alone. This was just the beginning. As the implications of her words sank in, Volander felt a chill run down his spine. He looked around the command center, seeing the celebration in a new light. These humans weren't just savoring a victory. They were steeling themselves for a greater conflict to come. In that moment, surrounded by technology and tactics that defied explanation, Volander began to understand the true nature of humanity. This wasn't just another spacefaring race. This was something older, something that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, something that had been preparing for this moment for longer than the Achernar could comprehend. As if reading his thoughts, Dr. Fan approached, her earlier levity replaced by a solemn intensity. "Captain, I think it's time we had a talk about that condition affecting your people, and about why you were really drawn to Earth." Volander nodded, his mind reeling from the implications. As he followed Dr. Fan to a private conference room, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to learn secrets that would reshape his understanding of the galaxy itself. Behind them, the main view screen showed the surface of Mars, where human soldiers were already beginning the process of rebuilding and fortifying their positions. In orbit, ships that had remained hidden throughout the battle emerged from cleverly disguised asteroid fields, taking up defensive positions around the planet. The message was clear: humanity was done hiding. The galaxy was about to learn why this species, seemingly so young and vulnerable, had survived while others had fallen. And the Achenar, through a twist of cosmic fate, found themselves at the center of a story far greater than they could have ever imagined. As the door to the conference room closed behind them, Volander steeled himself for revelations that would change the course of galactic history. The true nature of humanity, the secret of their longevity, and the cosmic game they had been playing for eons was about to be unveiled. And with it, perhaps, the key to saving his own people from the mysterious affliction that had driven them to Earth in the first place. As the conference room door sealed shut with a pneumatic hiss, Volander felt the weight of countless stars pressing down upon him. Dr. Fan's expression was a mixture of gravity and barely contained excitement as she activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. "What you're about to see," she began, her voice low and intense, "has been classified at the highest levels for millennia. Captain, your people's affliction. It's not a coincidence that it led you to Earth." The hologram flickered, resolving into an image of a double helix. But this was no ordinary DNA. It twisted and folded in impossible ways, its structure defying the laws of biology as Volander understood them. "This," Fan continued, "is human DNA, or rather, what human DNA has become." Volander's bioluminescent patches flared with shock. Impossible. Such complexity. It would take millions of years of guided evolution to... "Try billions," Fan interrupted, her eyes never leaving the swirling display. "Humanity isn't young, Captain. We're ancient. Perhaps the most ancient species in the galaxy." Before Volander could process this revelation, alarms blared throughout the station. Admiral Murphy's voice crackled over the intercom, tense but controlled. "All hands to battle stations. The Zin are regrouping. Dr. Fan, bring our guests to the command center. We may need their insights." As they rushed through the corridors, Volander's mind raced. The implications of Fan's words were staggering. If humans were truly that old, then their apparent technological level, their entire civilization. "It's all a facade, isn't it?" he asked as they entered a lift. "Your primitive appearance, your seemingly recent advancement into space." Fan's smile was both sad and proud. "We've learned the hard way that advertising our true nature tends to complicate things." The lift doors opened, revealing a command center transformed. Gone was any pretense of limited technology. Holographic displays filled the air, showing real-time data from across the solar system. At the center, Admiral Murphy stood before a three-dimensional representation of the approaching Zin fleet. "Status report," she barked as Fan and Volander approached. Major Faulkner, his face grim, responded. "The Zin have adapted their formation. They're using some kind of quantum entanglement to coordinate their movements. Our previous tactics won't work." Murphy nodded, her eyes never leaving the display. "Then it's time we showed them what we're really capable of. Initiate Protocol Lazarus." A ripple of anticipation passed through the human crew. Volander exchanged glances with Neris, who had just arrived with Dr. Mbeke. What new surprise did these enigmatic humans have in store? As if in answer to his unspoken question, the holographic display shifted. The moon, which had seemed a static, lifeless orb, began to change. Vast sections of its surface split apart, revealing cavernous hangar bays. From these emerged ships, unlike anything Volunda had ever seen. They moved with an organic fluidity, their hulls shimmering with energy fields that bent light around them. "By the cosmic void," Neris breathed. "Those ships, they're alive, aren't they?" Mbeki nodded, his eyes gleaming with pride. "In a manner of speaking. Bioneural interfaces, quantum consciousness matrices, the result of eons of development." As the lunar fleet took up defensive positions around Earth, Murphy turned to the Achernar. "Your insights on Zin tactics could be crucial. We need every advantage we can get." Volunda stepped forward, pushing aside his awe to focus on the task at hand. The Zin rely heavily on swarm tactics. Their individual ships are relatively weak, but they use quantum entanglement to act as a single, coordinated entity. Neris added, "Their weapons are based on exotic particle acceleration. Devastating, but with a distinct energy signature before firing." Murphy's eyes narrowed in thought. "Quantum entanglement, you say? Interesting." She turned to a group of officers huddled around a separate console. "Initiate Project Oracle. Let's see how their hive mind handles a little chaos." As the human officers sprang into action, Volunda couldn't help but marvel at their efficiency. It was as if they had rehearsed this scenario countless times. Perhaps, given what he now knew of their true age, they had. The main view screen flickered, showing the vast expanse of space between Earth and Mars. The Zin fleet appeared as a swarm of crystalline shards, their formation tight and precise. As they approached, the lunar defense fleet moved to intercept. What followed was a battle unlike anything Volunda had ever witnessed. The human ships moved with impossible grace, their maneuvers defying the laws of physics. They seemed to anticipate the Zin attacks before they happened, weaving through the swarm with calculated precision. "How are they doing that?" Neris asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Fan, who had been monitoring a separate display, answered, "Project Oracle. We're using quantum predictive algorithms to anticipate their movements, fighting fire with fire, so to speak." But the Zin were not easily defeated. Their numbers were vast, and for every ship the humans destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The battle raged across the solar system, with Mars itself becoming a key strategic point. Colonel Ever's voice crackled over the comms, strained but determined. "Admiral, we've got Zin dropships trying to establish a beachhead in Valles Marineris. Request orbital support." Murphy's response was immediate. "Lunar Battery Omega. Target Valles Marineris. Surgical strikes only. We don't want to reshape the entire canyon." The surface of the moon shimmered as massive energy weapons emerged from hidden silos. Beams of coherent light, more powerful than anything the Achernar had ever seen, lanced out across space. Where they struck the Martian surface, Zin forces simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. "Incredible," Volunda murmured. "The precision required for such an attack at this distance." "We've had a lot of practice," Faulkner said grimly, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. As the battle raged on, Volunda began to notice patterns in the Zin attacks. Their swarm tactics, while initially overwhelming, had a rhythm to them, a vulnerability. "Admiral," he said, an idea forming, "the Zin quantum entanglement. It's not just for coordination. I think it's how they perceive reality itself." Murphy turned to him, her eyes sharp. "Explain." "Their ships move in perfect unison, yes, but look at how they react to our attacks. There's a split-second delay, as if the information has to propagate through their entire fleet." Neris caught on, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with excitement. "If we could disrupt that entanglement somehow." "We could blind them," Murphy finished, a predatory smile spreading across her face. "Dr. Fan, remember that little project you were working on? The one I said was too dangerous to even test?" Fan's eyes widened. "The quantum foam agitator? But Admiral, the risks are less than the risk of losing this battle," Murphy said firmly. "Make it happen." As Fan rushed to a separate console, Fingers flying across holographic interfaces, Volander felt a mix of anticipation and dread. What new wonder, or terror, were these humans about to unleash? The answer came moments later as a series of satellites, previously hidden in Earth's orbit, activated. They began to emit a strange, pulsing energy that seemed to make the very fabric of space ripple. The effect on the Xin fleet was immediate and devastating. Their perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ships collided with each other, their coordinated attacks falling apart. By the cosmic void, Neris breathed. What did you do? We disrupted the quantum foam, Fan explained, her voice filled with equal parts awe and concern. Essentially, we've scrambled the underlying structure of space-time in that region. The Xin's quantum entanglement can't function properly. Volander watched in amazement as the human fleet pressed their advantage. With the Xin's coordination shattered, the superior tactics and technology of the Earth forces began to turn the tide. But victory, it seemed, would not come without cost. As the quantum disruption spread, alarms blared throughout the command center. "Admiral," Faulkner called out, his voice tense. "The disruption field is growing beyond our predictions. If it continues to expand at this rate..." Murphy's face hardened. "It could reach Earth. Fan, can we shut it down?" Fan's fingers danced across her console, her expression growing more frantic by the second. "The process has become self-sustaining. I can't stop it." As panic began to spread through the command center, Volander felt a strange calm descend upon him. In that moment of crisis, watching these ancient humans face a threat of their own making, he understood why they had hidden their true nature for so long. The power they wielded was as terrifying as it was awe-inspiring. But he also understood something else, something that perhaps the humans, in their eons of existence, had forgotten. "Admiral," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I think I know how to stop this, but I'll need access to your quantum communications array." Murphy hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Do it." As Volander approached the communications console, he felt the weight of two civilizations resting on his shoulders. The fate of Earth, of his own people, and perhaps of the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. With a deep breath, he began to input a series of commands, drawing upon knowledge his people had guarded for generations, knowledge of the fundamental forces that shaped the universe itself. As his fingers danced across the alien interface, melding Achernar wisdom with human technology, Volander couldn't help but smile. Perhaps this was why his people had been drawn to Earth, not just to seek help, but to offer it in return. The quantum foam agitator's effects began to ripple outward, threatening to engulf the Earth in a bubble of distorted space-time. But as Volander's modifications took effect, a new pattern emerged. The ripples began to interfere with each other, creating nodes of stability in the chaos. "It's working!" Fan exclaimed, her eyes wide as she studied the readings. "The disruption is collapsing in on itself." As the threat to Earth subsided, the focus returned to the Xin fleet. Without their quantum coordination, they were little match for the combined might of the human forces. Ship after ship fell to the precision strikes of the lunar batteries and the fluid grace of the bio-neural fleet. In a matter of hours, it was over. The remaining Xin ships, those that could still maneuver, fled the solar system, leaving behind a graveyard of crystalline wreckage drifting between the planets. As the cheers of victory echoed through the command center, Volander found himself the center of attention. Admiral Murphy approached, her expression a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. "You saved us all," she said simply. "How?" Volander's bioluminescent patches pulsed with a complex mixture of emotions. "It seems, Admiral, that our peoples have more in common than we realized. The affliction that brought us to Earth, it's connected to the same fundamental forces you were manipulating." Understanding dawned in Murphy's eyes. "You're saying your people have been dealing with quantum-level disruptions on a biological scale?" Neris stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. "It's more than that. Admiral, I believe I understand now why we were drawn to Earth. Your people, in your unimaginably long history, must have faced and overcome the same challenges that are now threatening our species. A heavy silence fell over the command center as the implications sank in. Humans and Achernar alike grappled with the idea that their meeting might not have been chance, but cosmic necessity. Doctor. Fan was the first to break the silence, a voice filled with renewed purpose. We need to compare notes, immediately. If we can combine our knowledge, we might not only cure your people, Murphy finished, but unlock new understandings that could benefit both our species. As plans were made for a full scientific exchange, Volunder found his gaze drawn to the main view screen. It showed the Earth, serene and blue, seemingly unchanged by the epic battle that had just taken place in its defense. Yet he knew that everything had changed. The galaxy was about to enter a new era. Humanity, ancient and powerful, was stepping out of the shadows. The Achernar, with their unique insights, would be there to guide and support them, and together, they would face whatever new challenges the cosmos had in store. As the command center buzzed with activity, preparations already underway for the next phase of human-Achernar cooperation, Volunder allowed himself a moment of reflection. The journey that had brought him to Earth seeking salvation had become something far greater. It had become the first step towards a future brighter than either species could have imagined alone. The command center hummed with an eerie calm as Admiral Murphy studied the holographic display. Volunder watched, fascinated by the intensity in her eyes. The Zin fleet, a swarm of crystalline shards, hung motionless in space, their previous formation shattered by the quantum disruption. They're regrouping, Murphy murmured, her fingers tracing patterns in the air. But look here, and here. She highlighted several points in the hologram. They're falling back into old patterns. Predictable. Dr. Fan leaned in, her brow furrowed. You think they're reverting to some kind of base programming? Murphy nodded, a predatory smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Exactly. And we're going to use that against them. Volunder felt a shiver run down his spine. The casual way these humans discussed outmaneuvering a force that had terrorized his people for generations was almost frightening. Admiral, he ventured, how can you be so certain of their movements? Even with their coordination disrupted, the Zin are known for their adaptability. Murphy turned to him, her eyes gleaming with a knowledge that seemed to span eons. Captain, when you've been playing this game as long as we have, you learn to see the patterns. The Zin, for all their technological might, are still bound by their nature. Before Volunder could probe further, alarms blared throughout the station. On the main view screen, a section of the Zin fleet suddenly surged forward, energy weapons charging. Lunar Defense Grid, Sector 7, Murphy barked, her voice calm despite the imminent threat. Execute Protocol Chimera. The surface of the moon shimmered as hidden weapon platforms emerged. But instead of firing, they began to emit a strange, pulsing energy. The advancing Zin ships suddenly found themselves enveloped in a shimmering field. What's happening to them? Neris gasped, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Dr. Fan smiled, pride evident in her voice. We're rewriting their base code in real time. Those ships are now under our control. Volunder watched in awe as the captured Zin vessels turned on their own fleet, sowing chaos and confusion. The Achernar exchanged glances, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with a mixture of shock and admiration. This level of technological manipulation, Neris breathed. It shouldn't be possible. The computational power required is considerable, Murphy finished, her attention still fixed on the battle. But when you have the resources of an entire solar system at your disposal, you'd be surprised what's possible. As the battle raged on, Volunder began to notice a pattern. Every Zin maneuver seemed to be anticipated and countered before it could even fully develop. It was as if the humans were playing both sides of a cosmic chess game. There, Murphy pointed to a seemingly empty sector of space. That's where they'll make their next push. Major Faulkner, deploy the Phantom Squadron. From the shadows of a nearby asteroid field, a group of sleek black ships materialized. They moved with an organic fluidity that defied the laws of physics, intercepting the Zin assault force before it could even fully emerge from hyperspace. Impossible, Volander murmured. How did you know? Murphy's smile was enigmatic. Let's just say we've had a lot of practice reading the cosmic currents. As the hours passed, the tide of battle shifted decisively in humanity's favor. The Zin, their once coordinated swarm reduced to scattered pockets of resistance, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. In a desperate gambit, a group of Zin capital ships attempted to break through Earth's defenses, aiming for a direct assault on the planet's surface. They're getting predictable, Murphy sighed, almost sounding disappointed. Dr. Fan, I think it's time we showed them why Earth has remained untouched for so long. Fan nodded, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface, activating the Aegis protocol. The view screen shifted, showing a view of Earth from orbit. As the Zin ships approached, the planet's atmosphere began to shimmer. Massive energy fields coalesced, forming intricate geometric patterns that spanned continents. The Zin weapons' fire, powerful enough to glass entire planets, dissipated harmlessly against the barrier. But it wasn't just a defensive measure. Tendrils of energy lashed out, ensnaring the Zin ships and crushing them like cosmic eggshells. By the void, Neris whispered, her voice filled with awe. Your entire planet is a weapon. Not a weapon, Murphy corrected gently. A guardian. There's a difference. As the last of the Zin fleet retreated, their once mighty armada reduced to a fraction of its former strength, a sense of stunned silence fell over the command center. Volander turned to Admiral Murphy, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with a mixture of emotions he couldn't quite name. Your people. Who are you, really? Murphy exchanged glances with Dr. Fan and Major Faulkner. After a moment of silent communication, she nodded. I think it's time we had a talk, Captain. About who we are and why your people were really drawn to Earth. The Admiral led Volander and Neris to a private chamber adjacent to the command center. As the door sealed behind them, the walls shimmered, transforming into a vast star field. What you're about to learn, Murphy began, her voice taking on a weight that seemed to span millennia, has been kept hidden from the galaxy for longer than most civilizations have existed. The starfield shifted, focusing on a familiar blue-green planet, Earth. But as they watched, the continents began to shift. Oceans rose and fell, and great cataclysms reshaped the face of the planet again and again. Humanity isn't young, Murphy continued. We're ancient, perhaps the most ancient species still in existence. Images flashed by. Primitive humans discovering fire, building pyramids, launching rockets into space. But interspersed with these familiar scenes were glimpses of something more. Humans walking among the stars, shaping planets, and battling cosmic horrors that defied description. We've seen civilizations rise and fall. Murphy's voice was soft, almost melancholic. We've fought in wars that spanned galaxies and negotiated peace treaties between entities that exist beyond time and space. Volander felt his understanding of the universe shifting. But why hide? Why pretend to be a young, emerging species? Murphy's smile was sad. Because, Captain, we learned the hard way that the galaxy isn't always kind to its elders. There were those who sought to steal our knowledge, to harness our power for their own ends. And there were younger races who resented our guidance, who wanted to forge their own path without our interference. The images shifted again, showing Earth as it appeared now. A beautiful blue marble, seemingly unchanged by the eons that had passed. So we withdrew, Murphy continued. We hid our true nature and watched from the shadows. We guided when necessary, intervened when we had to, but always from behind the scenes. Neris, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. The affliction that's been plaguing our people, you knew about it, didn't you? That's why we were drawn here. Fan nodded, her eyes filled with compassion. Your condition is something we've seen before, in species that are approaching a critical evolutionary juncture. We couldn't interfere directly, but we could nudge you in the right direction. Volunder's mind reeled with the implications. So our entire journey here, our encounter with the Zin, was a test, Murphy finished, and a lesson. We needed to see if your people were ready for the truth, and if you could be trusted with the knowledge we possess. The starfield faded, returning the room to its original state. Murphy stepped forward, her posture straight and regal. Captain Volander, Scientist Neris, on behalf of humanity, I invite you and your people to join us, not as supplicants seeking aid, but as partners in safeguarding the future of our galaxy. Volander felt the weight of countless stars pressing down upon him. The choice before him would shape not just the destiny of his people, but potentially that of countless civilizations across the cosmos. There's so much more to show you, Murphy said, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and caution. But not here. If you're willing, we'd like to continue this discussion on the surface of Earth itself, in a place more appropriate for revelations of this magnitude. As Volander and Neris exchanged glances, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with a complex mixture of emotions, they knew that whatever they decided, nothing would ever be the same again. The true nature of humanity, ancient guardians of the cosmos, had been revealed. And with it, a new chapter in galactic history was about to unfold. The journey that had brought them to Earth seeking salvation had become something far greater. It had become the first step towards a future brighter and more complex than either species could have imagined alone. As they prepared to descend to the surface of Earth, Volander couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets did this ancient world hold? And what role would his people play in the cosmic drama that was about to unfold? The answers, he suspected, would be both wondrous and terrifying. But one thing was certain: the universe would never look the same again. Hey there again. I'm glad you've come so far. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button. This is really important to the channel. Really important. And I have one more thing for you. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.